On this 24th day of April, in the year of our Lord, 2009, I bid to you my greetings. My name is George Washington. Some call me the father of this great nation, while others... I cannot disclose what others call me, for we are in the presence of ladies and gentlemen. See, as I endeavored to be a statesman and a military leader, I had those who despised my every move. But I am thankful I have those who were my allies. Those were the men, the founding fathers of this country. Those, the signers of this Declaration of Independence. I was at Valley Forge when this document was delivered to me. As I unscrolled the document, I began to read it to my men, and they began to weep. That their home states, their colonies, had stood shoulder to shoulder. They knew that their signatures upon this document meant certain death for many and poverty for most. Most were preachers, deacons, lay pastors. Most were masons. Most were God-fearing men. As I read this document to my men, my generals, they began to weep. Not a dry eye was in the room at Potts Tavern, in Potts House. And they all stood as I said, sirs, it is now time to go win our liberty and pay the price. And one such young man comes to mind. His name was Private Stephen Daniels. He was maybe 17, maybe 18. He came from a good family. He lived near Mount Vernon, but he was strong and made of good metal. He was part of the Continental Army. A century's duty was a must, for the British and the Hessian allies were camped nearby, and Private Daniels was my sentry. I went out to check on him one evening, and as I approached him, he was standing there shivering from the cold as he held his musket. I began to look him up and down, and I could see that his clothes, they were threadbare. He had no shoes upon his feet. He had but mere rags. He and his brothers in arms, they had been starving to death, so they took their shoes and their boots. They boiled them in water for nourishment. That's what they had to eat. They ate their shoes. I asked the young man if he would come inside and warm by my fire, but he saluted and he said, "Sir, 'tis my duty to stay at my post. I will see you at morning's light." I retired and I went back inside of my tent. And when I awoke the next morning, I went outside to see about the young lad. And that's when I found him frozen. He had frozen to death while still standing at his post. And I went back inside of my tent, and I knelt and I prayed and I asked my God to forgive me. For the blood of this man was upon my hands, and I was a defeated general. The British had me beat. While I was sleeping, this man's life slipped away. And while you were sleeping, your liberties have been taken away. While you were sleeping, they told you that the God in heaven that made all of us does not exist. For that's what they teach in our schools. That liberty that we fought for, that we died for at Valley Forge, while you were sleeping, you let it slip away. While you were sleeping, they told you that your free speech was no longer free, that you would pay a price for your speech. While you were sleeping, they told you that the right to keep and to bear arms is not for we the people, it's for just the militia. But the founding fathers, they so designed that Bill of Rights for you, for we the people. So when you read your Constitution, do not look at it as the government, as a government document. This is your document. While you were sleeping, do not be guilty, for the thief come to kill, to steal, and destroy. Do not let them destroy our country, for while you were sleeping, they tried to take away this document. Your guarantees, your honors, your privileges, while you were sleeping. They told you we're no longer a Christian nation. The young man who died as a sentry at my post, did he give his life in vain? Did all those who died during the Revolutionary War, did they give their life in vain? While you were sleeping, the thief came. As men march upon the field, we call it standing in the gap. When one man falls in the ranks, the others fill that gap and march forward to face the enemy. Who will stand in the gap with me? Around the camp we stop the watch fires to watch for the enemy. Who will keep the watch fires burning for the enemy? I will. And America has fallen to sleep. Awaken, America, before it's too late. Awaken.